Welcome, and blessings to you. I'm Betsey Beckman, and I'm so glad that you have joined us in continuing to explore the story of creation. By now, I'm assuming you have already watched our main offering, the creation poem, written by James Weldon Johnson, which I had the joy of dancing on the beach here in the Northwest. And hopefully you've had the chance to spend some time with the reflection questions provided and consider, what are the moments that spoke to you, where you felt energized or touched, or had the surprise of seeing God in a new way? When we pay attention to these stirrings inside of us, we begin to listen to God's ongoing revelation and invitation in our heart. One of the reasons I love telling this story is that when I enter into it with my body and my voice, I get to experience the heart of God and the delight of God. This is not a frowning and serious deity with eyebrows pinched together, pointing down at the world. This is a God who's down in the mud with us, engaged in the play of creation. This is a God giving birth, delighting in sending stars into the universe, and smiling at the beauty of a rainbow, and longing to share the mystery with us. So when we imagine God like this, as an artist, there's an invitation for us. Because remember, we were all made in the image and likeness of God. So we are invited to be artists and to live into the creative mystery that God planted in us. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Betsey, you don't understand. I'm not creative. But God is here to tell you differently. God invites us into the creativity of our own lives. Each day when we wake up, our primary purpose is not to check things off of our to-do list. Each day, God is inviting us into the mystery, into surprise, into delight, into the joy and the mess of the creative process. God invites us into sacred play, playing with others, engaging with the gifts of the universe, and listening to our own holy longing. When we engage in the play and the work of creation, we bring light, we bring joy, we bring newness, and that is God's divine energy moving within us, each in our own unique way. Through us, God continues the act of creation. So in your life, you may choose to play and create through any of the well-known art forms like song, poetry, photography, dance, painting. All of these can help teach us and renew us for creative responses in our world, in our workplace, in our church, in our families. Today, I offer you a chance to explore. I invite you to step inside the creation poem with me. Come, awaken your body, your voice, your imagination, so that you can feel within you the creative spark. We might call this a moving meditation. Not something that's static and serious, but a playful breaking open of the word. This kind of active meditation can help our very selves to come to know that in God we live and move and have our being. I'm going to be dancing with you today, and also with a group of friends who have joined me here in this beautiful garden. So wherever you are, I invite you to imagine that you are here with us, dancing and moving in the beauty of nature. And that as we move, we are inviting God to speak to us in the cells, in our fingertips, in the muscles and bones of our being. So, as we prepare, I would invite you, if you would feel comfortable, to take off your shoes. And also, I think it's time for us to stand up. So if you are able, come on out into the space. Make sure there's a little room around you. Do you have some room around you? Excellent. And as I'm leading you, make sure that you take care of your own body. So feel free to alter any of the movements that I do so that they fit who you are. And that's including, if you would feel more comfortable remaining seated during the meditation, you can follow Jim here, who will be demonstrating what it's like to have a chair. So feel free now to pause the DVD until you are ready to begin. Let us begin with a prayer, lifting our arms to the sky, to the heavens. Creator God, you who flung the stars against the far corners of the night, who rounded the earth in the palm of your hand, who bent over us like a mammy bending over her baby, we ask you to be with us this day as we step inside your story of creation. May we come to know that in you we live and move and have our being. And let the people say, Amen. Let us warm up the instrument of our bodies. We begin by shaking out a hand. Shake out your stiffness. And shake out your other hand. Shake out your stuckness. And a foot. Shake it out. Shake out your seriousness. And another foot. Shake out your self-consciousness. And shake out what you sit on. Shake out your spine. And shake out your voice. Great. And then rub your hands together. These hands that create, that paint, that draw, that write, that build, and that reach out to touch. Reach out and lift your hands to that creative spirit above us, beyond us, reaching through one hand and the other. To that spirit that calls us beyond ourselves, maybe even stretching us beyond our comfort zone sometimes. And then reach your hands out to the side, to each other, to the creative spirit that lives between us, that surprises us in our connections. And then wrap your hands around yourself and around your heart. Feel that creative spirit that lives deep inside of you, whispering. And then lean over upside down so that your hands reach towards the earth. And let your spine lengthen and the backs of your legs stretch. And if your fingers touch the earth, you can feel that holy ground beneath you. And then roll up your spine. And let your head be the last thing to come up. And then again, reaching up to the God beyond us. And out to the God among us. And around to the God within. And over, rolling over towards that holy ground that sustains us. The ground of our being. And then roll up. Let your head be the last thing. And roll your shoulders. Today, you don't don't have to have any of the cares you brought here with you. You're going to let them go and roll in the other direction. Today we're here to explore. And now, I'd like to invite us to warm up 4 different movement patterns that we can draw upon as we dance today. So these are patterns that I learned about from the practice of interplay, which has been a wonderful source for me in my own life. But let's begin with the pattern of swinging, letting our bodies side to side and feel the weight dropping through the center in your arms. Breathing. Great. And now let's explore the movement pattern of shaping. So make a shape with your body. And then make another shape. And another shape. And let's make a dignified shape. And a shape on one leg. Excellent. And let's explore the pattern of thrusting. So sending movement out from your center, out beyond you. Out your feet, out your hands. Great. And finally, the pattern of hanging, which is a flowing, connected, slow, beautiful breathing through your spine like water. Beautiful. Great. And then coming back to center, take a deep breath in and let it out with a sigh. And another one. Sigh it out. And one more time. Great. And now I invite you to put your hands on your heart. Begin to feel your heart beating. From your heart, we're going to pass through a gateway into the place of story, poetry, of imagination, of the ancient stories that have been passed down to us. In the heart that you are feeling beating, I invite you to imagine that this is God's heart. And that we are traveling back now in time. Back before there were humans on the earth. Back before the animals, before the seas, before the planets, before the stars, to a time when all that was God's heart beating. I invite you to begin to sway left and right. So that original heartbeat of God is moving in you, breathing. The first rhythm of all creation, the heartbeat of God. And God stepped out on space, and as you lean one foot and the other with this swaying, imagining that you are God stepping out onto space, onto the vast nothingness. You stepping out. And God looked around. And as you lean to one side, I invite you to begin to unfold your arms now, to let your elbows, your forearms, your wrists, and your fingertips reach out to the far corners of that nothingness. And then draw back into yourself, around your heart, curving and curling in. And then reaching out again from your center, through the fingertips of God. And then drawing back into yourself, to your center. God looked around, stretching out again, and this time staying out there in that extended place, feeling your connection to all that is. And at this moment, God says, I'm lonely. And begin to draw back into your center now, drawing back to the very core of your being, back to your heart. And in that empty place inside of God, God says, I'll make me a world. And as far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything. So now, standing on one foot, begin to hover like you are the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God before all time, hovering over the abyss. And try the other leg, hovering the breath over the darkness. Blacker than 100 midnights coming down now, coming down into the cypress swamp, like a soup, a great big soup of darkness and blackness. And from that darkness, like the lotus growing out of the mud, in the middle of your hands, draw some energy. And then take this as a smile coming up through your center, through your core, through your chest and lungs, through your face. And God smiled, and the light broke. And again, the light broke. The light broke. And the darkness rolled up on one side. So roll it up, roll the darkness up on one side, and see that light shining on the other. And God said, that's good. And join me. That's good. Then God reached out and took the light into his hands. And God rolled the light around in her hands. So roll that light around as if you were someone who is doing Tai Chi, and you have a ball of energy and light that you are playing with and fashioning until you make the sun, the radiant sun. And then God set the sun ablazing in the heavens. And with the light left over from making the sun, God gathered it up in another ball, rolling, and a shining ball. And then, with that blazing energy, God flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon, the stars, the supernova, the galaxies, the Milky Way, filling the universe and the sky, and finally hanging that crescent moon up in the heavens. And then, down between the darkness and the light, God prepared to hurl the world. Now I invite you to imagine that the world is within you. You are pregnant with the earth. Let your hips move with that circular tending, that rocking, while the earth is gestating and forming inside you. And then we'll have 3 breaths to bring this earth into birth. Taking a breath in, and the second breath, and the third breath, bringing the earth into your hands. And then God set the earth into space. And see that blue earth shining ball. And God said, that's good. And God said, that's good. Then God himself stepped down. So we're going to take your big foot and step down upon the earth. And God walked. God walked around. each footstep hollows the valleys out and bulges the mountains up. God's walking on the sand. Feel your foot, your toe, trailing rivulets in the sand that become canyons. And maybe God even writes God's name in the sand. And then God stopped and looked and saw that the earth was dry and barren. Let the sand flow through your fingertips. And then God stepped over to the edge of the world. Draw that thought to your mouth. And God spat out the 7 seas across the globe. The Pacific, the Atlantic. She batted her eyes, and the lightning flashed. He clapped his hands, and the thunder rolled. And the waters above the earth came down. Let those waters rain down upon you, watering the earth, watering each other. The cooling waters came down. All the way down, 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 down to the earth. And then the green grass sprouted. Those blades sprout up on one foot. Let them sprout up on another foot. The green grass sprouted. The little red flowers blossomed. So now let your hands become flowers. And we know that through all time, various cultures have danced the dance of sacred images with their hands. The people of India, of Indonesia, of Hawaii, the Native Americans, letting their hands speak the eloquence of God and the blossoming of the flowers. And come to find one final blossom on the vine. And then the pine tree pointed its finger to the heavens. So let's plant our feet on the earth. Send your roots down, down, down. And then draw up the sap within your beings. And the oak spread out his arms. Feel your groundedness in the earth and your arms to the sky. And then let's even explore the posture of the tree from the tradition of yoga. So this is a one-legged tree, holding our balance with our roots sending down. And then the lakes cuddled down. So let's wrap our arms around a lake and let become like a bowl that you are carrying, a basin full of water. The lakes cuddle down, and find a place for it to cuddle down in the hollows of the ground. Set that lake there. And the rivers ran down to the sea. Let yourself become like water flowing. Finding watercourse way around the tributaries and branches. And one more time. Let it fall down upon you. The refreshing water of the sea. Breathing deeply. And then the rainbow appeared and curled itself over God's shoulder. So find a partner and find a way to create a rainbow. And let's get Jim in on this rainbow too. And God said, "That's good. That's good." And then God raised his arm. God waved her hand over the sea and over the land and said, "Bring forth," and with me, "Bring forth." And quicker than God could drop his arm, fishes and fowls, beasts and birds roamed. Now I invite you each to let an animal spring to your mind's eye and become that animal. Feel free to include the sounds of your animal. And make contact with other animals that you pass. And then God called all the animals together in a council of all beings. And God said, "That's good." And the animals answered in their own animal language, which translates to mean, "That's good." And then God walked around, just going back to our swaying. Just letting yourself feel the side-to-side movement of that walking around. And God looked around on all that God had made. God looked at the sun. God looked at the moon and the stars. And on the earth with all its living creatures. And now let your hands expand out again to feel the fullness of all that has come forth from your own being. And then God said, "I'm lonely still." And let yourself draw back in around that heart that you began with. I'm lonely still. So God sat down by the side of a hill where God could think. Go ahead and sit down and find yourself a little spot. And with head and hands, God thought and thought. Till from the depth of God's heart, a new thought emerged. Make me a human. Up from the bed of the river, God scooped the clay, reaching forward, gathering up the clay. God kneeled himself down and began to fashion a human. As you're shaping this human now, I invite you to imagine that this being is you. You're God shaping you. God recreating the curve of your spine. The touch of your baby toe. The softness of your cheeks. The texture of your hair. God's heart bringing forth you as beloved. Until God shaped this being into God's own image. And then just hold that new being in front of you. Look on it with awe. And then into you, God breathes the breath of life. Take a deep breath in and breathe. And now it's you receiving the breath. So with your hands reached out, bring them towards you, breathing it in. Let it cascade around you like a baptism. And reaching out again. That breath is ever faithful. Breathing that breath in and around you. And once again, breathing, reaching out, breathing in the breath of life. And now you are recreated. I invite you, since your hands and your body have become all the rest of the creatures of creation and danced their beauty, now dance your own beauty. Let your hands speak their own language. The blessing you have received. Let as much of your body join into the dance as you would like. A dance of gratitude that only you know how to do, because only you are you, created by our loving God. And then take that dance, gather it up in your hands, bring your hands to your heart, and feel that heart of God still beating within you. Now I invite you to find a partner, someone near you, or you could make a threesome. If you're dancing alone, imagine God as your partner. Let your hands stay on your heart. Just take a moment to gaze at your partner. We are all made in God's image. And now we're going to witness to this miracle and this mystery. And each one of us will have a chance to move a little bit of that dance of recreation that you were exploring. And your partner will be with you, gazing upon you with the eyes of God. So if you're willing to be the first person who dances and moves, just put your hand out so that your partner knows you're going to go first. And then spend about a minute just moving some of what you found. Your partner simply witnesses, receiving the beauty of you. hands back to your heart. And let the partners bow to each other. Bow to that God that we see in one another. And now the second person or second pair of people will share their prayer in movement. And then bring your hands back to your heart. And again, bowing to each other, to that God in our midst. And then put your palms out and let your palms touch your partner's palms. And just as we swayed in the very beginning of creation, let's sway together, right and left. Just gazing at each other. Acknowledging this mystery we are moving in. And come back to stillness. And now let's come back to our circle. And I'm going to invite us together to breathe the breath of life upon each other. We'll begin by breathing in and then sending that breath out to each other. And breathing in and send it to another person in the circle. Breathing in to someone else. And again. Some other holy being. And one more time. And back to yourself. Back to your heart. And from our hearts now, joining hands. And swaying to the right and the left. Remembering that whenever we walk on this holy earth, we walk with God. And God said, that's good. 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 And one more time. And God said, that's good. Amen! Thank you so much for joining us today on this stepping inside of creation and dancing through the mystery. I invite you now to go ahead and take a little time of reflection, perhaps writing in your journal, sharing with those you've been dancing with, And may our God continue to reveal goodness inside of you. And we just have one more blessing for you. And God said,